When was that? Do you know when she would have done that?
Gee, I can't even remember. I can't remember exactly when it happened, but I remember when it happened because she found the pictures and so you want to see the pictures? I said, no, I don't want to see the pictures. Thank you very much.
How did she find the pictures?
She got suspicious. She was very good about, you know, has feelings about things happening like that. So she got suspicious and she went searching through all his stuff. And he had these pictures in the garage in one of his, he had a rack of clothing, you know, jackets and suits, and he found it in one of his coats. So, then, you know, she confronted him with it, and it broke him down, and he had to admit it.
That must have been terrible for him because she loved him so much.
Yes.
As well.
Yes.
Rinpoche did tell us that he knew about all this that was going on as he was growing up. And he said he knew that his mother knew as well. And this is why he thinks it hurt her so much, that he was always hurting her. And he remembers this very strongly as he was growing up. I mean, do you remember also other how he hurt her? Did she ever kind of express it, or did you see ways in which he hurt her or created pain for her?
Just he held her to a high standard, and if she didn't follow through with the high standard, then you know, they'd have an argument about it. But most of the stuff when I was around was pretty quiet as I got older. Okay. And it was, you know, I was the mediator. You know, they would have verbal arguments, but nothing really, you know, really bad.
Like how people just kind of tend to bicker after they've been married for a while. Did it just kind of get?
No, it's not that. It wasn't that kind of bickering. It was some bickering, but it was more, you know, it was an argument.
And they lived like that almost all their lives. Huh?
Yes, it's an argument.
And you know, why? Do you have any idea why they didn't just leave each other?
They loved each other. They weren't going to do that. They just just wasn't done.
And they had those same kind of expectations, I guess, for you and little Bircher to get married and have that same household.
The best thing that I have ever done in my whole life, according to my father, is giving birth to Max, my first.
Oh.
That he was a boy, so I did a good job.
Did they love your two children very much then?
Yes, extremely. They were much better grandparents than they were parents.
So I guess your children would only remember them as very loving. They wouldn't have seen the other side.
No, Julia saw the other side. They both saw the when they would fight.
Okay.
No, they saw it, but none of it was directed toward my children. That I made very sure that happened. It only happened once, and it never happened again.
And you know, this kind of relationship, was it quite normal within a Kalmyk community that a man would have these expectations?
Yes, because I know my aunt, my Chocholena, my mother's oldest sister, she was always having fights with her husband, and then her and all the kids would be coming over to our house and staying with us for a couple of days until she went back home again. But he was physically violent, and you know, he would like punch holes in the wall and things like that when he was drinking. So it just depended on the family. But no, not all families were like that. It's just something that, you know, that's the person that they married, and that's basically what happened. But no, there are families in the Kalmyk society that don't operate like that. This is abnormal for anybody.
But Bircher was never physically harmful towards Dana, right? Did he ever hurt her physically?
No, that didn't happen. There were a couple of incidents after. This was maybe about 5 years before he died. That he was physical with her once, and then she just beat back on him, and he never did it again. Okay,
because she was pretty strong too.
I mean, she was in a wheelchair, and the woman was like Hercules.
Do you know if he ever regretted what he, the kind of things he put Donna through?
I don't even think he ever realized what he was doing.
He just thought it was quite normal. He was the man.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't think he ever thought that he did anything wrong.
Did they ever come to, make peace before they passed away with each other?
Yes. Oh, before he passed away, and they had him, before they started him on the morphine, they were in there both talking, and they were like, close face to face and holding hands and hugging and kissing, and they were both, he was telling her stuff, so I guess he was asking her forgiveness is what I assumed, because I wasn't listening, that wasn't my moment to listen, and they were just both in there really talking, and she was crying and he was crying, so whatever it was, they resolved it before he passed on.
When did he pass away?
It was the day after Father's Day when Max was 13 years old. So now Max is 26, so 13 years ago.
Oh, that's quite long, huh?
Mm-hmm.
And Donna passed away not too long ago.
5 years.
5 years ago.
It was just 5 years this month.
Sarah had told us I'm not sure exactly when, but a few years ago, she was on the phone with Rinpoche, and she then quietly also called Donna at the same time to try and initiate conversation between them, like a conference call, something like that. But she says that the moment Donna picked up the phone and said hello, Rinpoche put the phone down, that he couldn't talk to her. What do you think about that?
I understand perfectly. Been there, done that. My daughter Julia has a way of, she'll say my name, my Mongolian name, in a way that my mother would do it when she was upset, and still to this day it scares me.
Even if it's Julia who's saying
yes, she sounds just like her, and it's scary. I can see him doing that. You can't face those unless you've gone through all those issues and put it to rest. You can't deal with it, and you don't want to deal with it because it's painful. It's very painful.
Of course.
But that's why I went to therapy.
It takes a lot of hard work to overcome it.
It's not only work, but it's emotionally and physically draining. I mean, after a therapy session, you're just like, you have to go home and go to sleep because you're just exhausted. And you still have, I still had 2 children to deal with, and it was a lot. But I have a very supporting husband. He's always been, we've always been partners, and it was hard on him too. I mean, it almost destroyed my whole family of what I was going through trying to deal with this until I could actually say, I can put this to bed now, I've resolved it. And it's not my fault.
Well, no, it's not.
No.
Did you kind of feel that for a long time, that this was all
every
your fault?
abused child feels that way, that it's their fault.
What was your fault?
That, the situation that they're mad and it's all your fault. You didn't do it just right, so they're mad at you, so it's your fault.
Did you go through many years of feeling just really insecure or not good enough? Were you ever made to feel that way?
For some reason, I've always had very high self-esteem, so no, I didn't have that because I knew I was okay. And you just kind of sense stuff. You have periods of where you're kind of down, but I'm a survivor. I always have been a survivor, and you just have to come back to, okay, you have to do what's good for yourself, and you have to come out of it, and that's basically what you do. And that's basically what I did most of my life.
And what was it like when you finally left home? How did you feel when you really left?
Free. I felt free. I felt like I can do this. I can take care of myself. I've been taking care of them and doing everything, and I can do this, and I felt free.
Had you already met Mark when you left home?
That's why I left home.
Oh, okay. So were you going to college nearby, or?
No, I was in college in New York, so it was about a 5-hour drive. So I was away, and the whole world kind of opened up, and it was tough the first year, and I wasn't well prepared, and it took a lot of adjusting. But when you're a survivor, you kind of say, okay, what do I need to do to make this better? And what can I do? And you just go into that mode and you just do it and you just learn. I used to be a very sweet young thing.
You still are.
No, I'm gotten to be a tough old bird.
You were saying before that because of the way you'd grown up, it was a very sheltered kind of life. So it must have been difficult, really. Like, how difficult was it when you finally went out and saw, like...
I didn't want to go to school. I was just, you know, scared to death. I wanted to come home. Like calling my mother and saying, I don't like it here. I don't want to be here. Can I come home? She's like, no, you have to stay there.
But it was quite good that, you know, at least they encourage your education.
And one of my refuges was reading. So I read constantly.
As you were growing up?
Yes. I mean, it takes you away to other places, other things, and I read almost a book a day.
Wow. Okay.
So I still remember in high school, I read Gone with the Wind in one night.
That's a huge book.
Yes. I can read fast. And, you know, they were always complaining, why are you always up there in your room reading? You know, his was, why are you always praying? Mine was, why are you always reading? And it's, you know, I enjoy reading. I still enjoy reading, but I read everything and anything. And I was always reading.
That's that's quite nice. You had something to hide away in, I guess. Did you know if Rinpoche had a special refuge too?
No.
To get away in?
No, but I'm sure it was his meditating.
Did you know about him having to kind of hide his practice from his mom?
Yes.
How did you know that?
She told me.
Oh, she knew?
She knew. She knew everything. I mean, there's not much you could hide from her. She was a sharp tack. Yeah. And she could tell when you're lying, too. So, you know, I never lied. You know, you learn that at a young age, and that, to me, the truth has always been so strong because it always comes out, no matter what. It might take a long time, but it always comes out. So don't bother lying. It's not worth it.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, because then you'll have to cover it, and then eventually...
You forget what you said.
Yeah. From your experience, it's really... I mean, you hear a lot of stories of how people had difficult childhoods, and it can go either way, that you can come up being really strong and helping more people by the experience, or going the other way and becoming even worse, or inflicting that kind of pain onto other people. And so from your experience, you know, what was it that made you go the right way, really stay strong?
I don't know. That's just inherent in my being. That's just how it is.
Since you were little? Were you ever mad at your parents?
Yes, every once in a while I would get mad. And a couple of times I've even hated them. But, you know, you get over that. You move on.
So when you ran away from home, it wasn't really running away?
No, I was 22 years old. But, you know, to them, I was running away home. They called the police and everything.
Oh, okay.
And tried to get me back, and the police said, she's 22 years old. We can't do anything for you.
Where did you run away to?
I ran away with Mark to Salt Lake City.
Oh, okay. What did you think when you heard that Rinpoche had run away?
Well, he did it several times, and I could understand it.
Did you ever speak to him during those times?
No. No, I didn't speak to anybody about things like that. That was not... Only through therapy am I able to speak to you about this. Okay. It's I didn't talk about it for almost 40 years.
40 years?
Yeah. I started therapy right after Julia was born when I was 38. So somewhere between, 39, when I was 39 is when I went into therapy. So it took me a long time. You didn't discuss it. You didn't want to deal with it. You don't want to think about it because you block it out.
And when you look back now, you can talk about your experience. How has it shed light on also, you know, what you think of how Rinpoche's experience was as he was growing up?
You deal with what you have to deal with. What doesn't kill you makes you stronger. I picked this life, so there must have been a reason that I picked this life. So that's, you just have to learn to deal with it and work with it. Follow the road.
Did you also know, because Rinpoche, did you ever see that side of him, that there was something maybe a little bit special about him in terms of Buddhism?
Yes.
What was that?
When he was little, we'd, you know, I'd come home for the holidays for Tsahan, and we'd go to temple, and then, you know, the priest, the first one, I was there, we had reconciled with my parents. Well, I had reconciled with my parents, and I came back for the holidays, and we went to temple, and the priest had him sit with them on their, you know, their little benches there, and to do the service in, and I thought that was, you know, different. My mother's like, oh, look at that. They've never done that before. You know, why are they doing that? So that was completely out of the ordinary. So they saw something that no one else saw.
And did you see him? You must have seen him at the temple.
Yes.
What was he like at the temple?
Very happy. Very happy.
It was like home for him, I guess.
Yes.
Yeah. What did Donna, you were saying that Donna knew that he was hiding his practice. What did she say about it? Like, was she amused by it? Or
well, you know, she didn't say it badly. She said, oh, I caught him again. He was, you know, in the middle of the night, I checked on him, and he was sitting in his bed praying. Because, you know, he'd be sitting meditating. And she said, he does that all the time. I don't know why he does that.
Do you think that she was upset because of what she wanted for him?
Yes.
Or because it was not what Bircher wanted, and that he would end up blaming her for it? Or?
No, it was because that's not what she wanted for him.
Oh, okay.
She wanted him to get married and have grandchildren and, you know, have a life that way, and she wanted to enjoy that part.
Well, she really wanted grandkids then.
Yeah.
And she must have been really happy when Max and Julia came along.
They were both excited.
Yeah.
They were both really excited.
They must have been spoiled rotten.
Yeah, they did. Oh, yeah. But, you know, that's what grandparents do.
Yeah. And what was Donna like after Bircher had passed away? Well, she must have missed him terribly when he passed away.
Yeah, that first year was really difficult. Really difficult, because she was in the house all by herself. She got to the point where she couldn't even stay in the house anymore, and it's like she tells me, you have to come and sell the house and get me out of here. It's like, oh, okay, I'll move you again. And she just had to get out of the house. She couldn't take it anymore. And I mean, it would have been more financially better for her to stay where she was, but that's not what she chose. So then she found a place to move to, so a condo, so we moved there. I moved her there. And then she was a lot more content then. And that's when they started giving her Prozac, and she became a different person.
Did she talk much about Bircher, Big Bircher, after he passed away?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, she talked about... She must have had only good memories of him, I guess, after
No.
he passed away. No?
She didn't forget a thing. She, you know, every once in a while she would talk about him being unfaithful, and then she'd talk about, you know, some of the good times they had, and it just kind of depended on what she was thinking about. And then sometimes she was mad at him for a long time for dying, because she said he didn't need to die, and he just didn't take care of himself as he should have, because he could have beat the illness, and he just didn't want to.
What did he pass away from?
Liver cancer.
So he was in quite a lot of pain as he...
Yes.
And she was there with him?
No, she tried to avoid that. I was there.
Oh, okay.
She was there with him when he passed. And then I came directly right after that with Julia, but I was the caretaker.
Okay.
Because that's been my role, is taking care of both of them, and so I helped them both pass.
How was he like in the last few days of his passing away? Did he have regrets?
Any regrets that he had, he told her. He didn't tell me, but he was very happy that I had come at this time to take care of it because she couldn't deal with the situation. She couldn't face the fact that he was actually going to die. And I had to do all of that for her and just handle everything.
And for herself, we heard that Gaga Lena's passing had a very deep impact on her because she'd passed away just a few days after Gaga Lena, right? Were you there with her in the last few days before she passed away?
I was there 15 minutes before I left. 15 minutes after I left her at the hospital, she passed away.
Oh.
As soon as I left.
What was she, saying, or how was she like those last few moments? Not just directly before, but the last few months or weeks.
She was very good. We were having problems with my cousin Sagan, and Chocholena was in the hospital, and I was supposed to come back here to Houston, and so I decided to stay extra. And then I took my mother to the hospital to see her, and then there was a big argument, and Sagan hit my Aunt Meda and was screaming and yelling at her because she obviously has mental problems as well. And my mother, who was in a wheelchair at the time, wanted to get right in the middle and give her a good smack too. And I had to pull her away. She was holding on the handrail, and I'm trying to pull her off the handrail, and I mean, it was difficult. So it took Susanna and me, the two of us, to get her hands off of the handrail so I could leave and get her away from that situation, because it was not good for her, because it really upset her. And her sister depended on her a lot, because my mother was the one who went out and did all the driving, because she didn't drive, and they did everything together, and she just relied on my mother. And I just have a feeling that she couldn't go by herself on the journey because she was afraid. She was always afraid. And my mother had to go with her on the journey, and that's what she chose to do, because there was no reason for her to pass away. She was going to be released from the hospital the next day. And they had everything all under control, and that was just her own decision. And after I left her for lunch that afternoon and then went to take her friend back home, and she passed away while I was gone. And then when I came back a couple of hours later, she wasn't in her room, and she was in intensive care. So they said, yeah, her heart thing started up again. So then we went down there, and they had her all on tubes, and she did not want to be resuscitated. They did. She was mad as a wet hen. And they said when she came to, she looked like she was going to kill him. And I said, well, that's because you weren't supposed to bring her back. So it took me a couple of hours to get her off of the respirator, because it was down her mouth. She didn't want it. She wanted it out. She told me she wanted it out. And she had told me that she had a DNR already in place, and she didn't want to be kept alive by any artificial means. So it took a while. The doctors finally gave in, and they said, well, she could die. And I said, well, that's her choice. If that's what she wants to do. So she doesn't want this, so you need to take it out. So they finally took it out. And then I called the family, and Mada and Aunt Matza and Jaja and everybody came over, and they talked to her while she still had the tube in. And she couldn't really talk, to them because of the tube. And then when they left, Amanda stayed with me, and then we got the tube out, and we had a lovely conversation for several hours. And she told us about her experiences being dead, and what she encountered, and who she saw, and everything, and then that she wanted to go back there.
Oh, so she left happily.
Yes,
peacefully. She
left willingly.
Well, it sounds like she was real feisty and strong right up to the end, huh?
Oh yeah. When we got back, the nurse said that she's a very brave woman, and that she died very, very peacefully and very nicely.
But she went through really quite a lot. I heard that she went through quite a lot in Europe as well. And it was really her who, she had to work hard from a very young age, because she was bringing up Jija and Meda, right?
Yeah, my grandmother was sick, her mother, and was in the hospital a lot, and so she was basically, taking care of the kids, and you know, trying to get food for them and just basically take care of everybody.
And that would have been, I guess, when she was only a teenager, right?
Mm-hmm.
Did she ever tell you about her experiences in Germany?
Yeah, in the DP camp. Well, they were coming from Yugoslavia. They lived in Belgrade, and the communists were coming through. So they had to evacuate, so they became refugees. And they were running that way, and they ran into the Nazis. So the Nazis put them all in displaced persons camp in Germany, and that's where, you know, they spent a lot of their time. But she says she remembers being on the train ride from Yugoslavia to Germany, and then how when they would stop, she'd have to go and try to, you know, find some food, because they didn't give them any food. They just locked them in the cattle cars.
Oh my God, okay.
And she would go out, and she said this one time, you know, my grandmother had given her this ruby ring to go buy some, you know, get some bread or exchange it for bread. Well, the person at the bakery would not exchange the ring for the bread. They didn't want it. They wanted money. And they didn't have any money because they left it all in Yugoslavia. And so she stole the bread, the loaf of bread, and she ran to the train, and then the Nazis were chasing her and shooting, and she said, I had to run in a way where they couldn't hit me because I had to get the bread back to the family. So she ran in a zigzag pattern like this all the way to the train, and the train was getting ready to move out, and she hopped in the train and had the bread.
Gosh.
So that's what she did most of her young lifetime.
Do you remember what? Then she must have been very close with her siblings. Like, do you remember?
Yeah,
what they were like
they were
together?
more like her children.
Meda and Gita.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Meda was telling us about how she remembers that they would go with her from house to house in Germany, and she would just go and knock on people's doors and beg for food for
Mm-hmm.
for her two younger
Mm-hmm.
siblings. And were they very close, like even as
Yes.
they got older?
Oh
you
yes,
seen it?
very close. They were all very close.
Okay. But she had two older siblings as well, didn't she? There
Yes.
was Lena and
Mhm.
Aaron.
Right.
But they didn't help with looking after the little ones and getting food.
No, Chocha Lena was considered the beautiful one in the family. My mother was considered the ugly one in the family.
Oh.
So Chocha Lena started, you know, working at different houses. So she was out of the picture, and she's 10 years older than my mother. So it was like a whole different thing. And you know, she had tried to get jobs, you know, working in households and stuff like that. So she was out, and her brother Narn was out too. And basically, you know, it was just the, you know, her and the two little ones and and her parents. So and her grandmother.
Mm-hmm.
That was their family unit.
So she really had to. She had to be strong. It wasn't really a choice for her.
No, she didn't have a choice whatsoever.
She was a big survivor too.
Yes,
in
she
that
was.
way. Okay, I'm dying to ask this question because Rinpoche has told us about this before. He heard Dana telling him and heard Dana talking with her sisters about it. I don't know if you remember that there was this story about how when they were in Yugoslavia, they would see these magical small little people coming out from the woods.
I hadn't heard that one
Have you
yet.
not heard that story?
No. So tell me.
Okay, I sound like a crazy person now. No, I think these guys have heard it as well. They would see these little people coming out from the forest, and these little people, they were not midgets. They were like some kind of fairy folk or something. They would come out, and they were moving out of the forest, and they would say, "Oh, bad times are coming. Bad times are coming. There's going to be a lot of unrest. We must leave. We must leave." And all these little people just came out from the woods and left. And Rinpoche would tell us a story because Dana would talk about it with her sisters as if it was just like, oh, remember that time in Yugoslavia when these little people came out. And this was part of, this came up because Rinpoche was telling us about how spiritual his mother was as well, that she had a very spiritual side to her too.
She
Do you
did.
remember that?
Yes. Her birth was, my grandmother couldn't have children, or the same child kept being reborn, and they had to break the cycle. So they broke the cycle when the last one died, and then they started when the priests all prayed and the monks were praying, and then Naren was born. And then after that, my mother was born, and they did the whole same thing. And the whole time that they were being born, that they were praying, they were chanting, so that they wouldn't get that one person back again.
What do you mean by they kept getting born?
They kept getting reincarnated. The same one would get reincarnated, live to be about a year old, and then die.
So also she had several
My grandmother
babies.
had 10 children. 5 of them died.
Okay.
And it was in that process. That's why there's such a 10-year gap between Elena and Naren in those 10 years, because that one child kept being reborn.
Oh, okay. How did they know that it was the same child that was getting reborn?
The priests.
Oh, I see, okay. So they did prayers to break that cycle.
Yes.
And then again for your mother.
For my mom.
Yeah. And so she grew up with quite a lot of spirituality in her life?
Mm-hmm. I think so.
Do you remember her being a religious person in any way? Did she pray? Or?
Not so much when she was younger, a lot more as she got older.
Okay.
Yeah, she always had her prayer beads.
But it wasn't something that was part of your household as you were growing up?
Well, we lived with it. You had your altar, and you went to church when you had to on the high holy days, and just basically it becomes part of your life that, you have to follow these teachings. And plus you have all our monks that are relatives or whatever, and they'd come over all the time to visit, and you always had teachings going on that way. And she always got counseling from one monk. His name was Baba, and he was really older, and he was really quite amazing. Mm-hmm. And I can remember the stories that she told me about him before he passed, because I remember him very well, that he used to take off and go visiting, and that he looked like he was dead, but he said, if my feet are warm, I'm coming back. And if my feet are cold, he says, I've moved on. So that's how you will know when I've died. So he did that several times, and I was witness to this, and he'd be laying there and he looked just like he was dead, but he wasn't, because his feet were still warm, and then he'd come back. So I'm not sure exactly where he went, but he went somewhere. So we grew up with all this different kinds. They had so many different ways of doing things back then, in different levels. So I mean, not all the monks were all the same. They were just all had different abilities and different things. And we had one monk that was, we called him the Emche, which is doctor. He was the doctor monk, and he would make little remedies for you and things like that to take when you're sick, and help you with that, things like that. So wow. They had different. They all had different abilities.
They were all Mongolian? These were the first generation of Mongolian monks then?
That came to the U.S.
Okay, so
they have been with the families from the very beginning. I mean, it's a whole big line ever since Genghis Khan left the people in Europe and Russia, that they held on the traditions and the culture for that long. And
they were the ones that traveled over with the Kalmyks when they came to America.
And when they came, all the priests and everything came with them.
So what did the Kalmyk community think when they started to bring in Tibetan priests, or did it not matter to them too much?
No, it was difficult, because the teachings, the way they handle things are a little bit different, because Mongolian monks do things that are different than Tibetan monks. And there's a lot of, they can do like fortune telling and things like that. They can just know these things, and some of the Tibetan monks can't do it. There are some Tibetan monks that are in New Jersey right now who can tell you, what reincarnation that your loved one has become. And I just said, I don't want to know, so don't tell me. And they said, okay. So it just depends on the monk. But I think they have now got to the point where they have really assimilated into it, because it's hard to break in when people have done something the same way for so long.
Yes, of course. It's part of their culture already.
Yes. But I think it's worked out really well. But the Mongolian ones, I think, are the ones that are the most fun.
There must be many more magical stories like that. Do you remember?
I'm sure there are.
Do you remember any more? I like the story about the monk who go traveling.
I can't think of anything offhand. When you're close to them, you know, they tell you that because you're part of their life and they're part of your family, that they can tell you this. Most of the monks, you know, won't tell you these things because they're not part of it. So if they're part of your family, they tell you, and you hear the stories. And he would always, you know, predict the future for us. I remember that, and he would tell my mother, he said, "You're going to live to see people are going to take poison and die." And my mother's like, "Why would they do that?" Because I remember that, and he's like, "No, the young people are all going to take poison and die," and then, you know, that became the drugs.
Oh yeah, of course.
And then it's like, oh, and then people are going to get this disease in their blood, and all these people from all over are going to die, and all this stuff. And that was it, you know, AIDS. And then I remember one thing he was saying, that we're going to have a lot of world calamities, you know, the tsunamis, the hurricanes, the earthquakes, the things like that would get more and more.
Oh, okay.
And that's exactly what's happened.
Yeah. Did it upset the Kalmyk community when Americans started hanging out in the temples?
Yes.
It did?
Yes.
They didn't, like, why would it upset them?
Because they weren't part of the culture. And they just thought it as, like, someone was just coming in and, you know, interrupting, and it's like, it was more like an invasion is what it was. So it kind of, they felt bombarded, and they just weren't used to it, and they're just all set in their ways. The customs have been there forever, and everyone goes by the customs, and it was just something that was different, and they weren't used to it. They got used to it after, you know, a while, but it was difficult. And then when we had that one woman who came to the Arashi Gempling, and her name, what was her name? I think it was Wendy. Anyway, she wore monk robes, and they were really upset about that.
Oh, okay.
So, you know, she was a woman with a shaved head and in the monk's robes, and they didn't think that was appropriate. That was not what needed, you know, you just didn't do that. She wasn't a nun, she was a monk.
I remember she did tell us that Donna especially never liked it. Like, she felt that that was not their religion, and that the teachings would be lost, or the traditions would be corrupted by them. Is that true?
She just, I don't think she just felt very comfortable. She just felt invaded. I think they all felt invaded and didn't feel comfortable. And it was made very apparent when we had the bouillon for my father, and she was really upset about that, and I don't blame her. I was upset too. But we had the funeral at Arashi Gempling, and then, you know, we were supposed to do the bouillon to send him off about a week later, and that weekend Arashi Gempling said, well, they couldn't do his bouillon because they had all these Americans coming for teachings, and that they, you know, wouldn't even interrupt whatever teachings they were doing, just to do a service for an hour for the bouillon to send him off on his way. So we had to go to Tashi Lumpo for the bouillon, and my mother was really upset about that. And I don't blame her, because he was a founding member of that church.
Yeah, that was his tribe's
yes,
church.
that was his tribe's church, yeah. That was the total good church. And that they couldn't even do a bouillon for him. And the bouillon is more important than the funeral. So that was very upsetting.
In general, though, did your mother like America?
I think so.
Did she ever talk to you about, you know, what it was like for her now to live in America, and did she like American people?
She assimilated very well. She still had a huge accent on her English, so if you couldn't understand her, it was difficult to understand her, but she was quite content.
Okay.
She was, you know, she was happy she could drive a car. She was happy, you know, she loved driving. So, and she loved, you know, going shopping and, you know, doing whatever, and she liked that freedom.
And I remember Rinpoche saying, do you remember this, that she learned English by reading comic books?
Yes.
Do you remember that?
Yes, she did.
Because she really was industrious, and she found many ways to learn.
Well, you know, she had to take a test to get a Black Seal license in order to operate the boiler at the school.
Okay.
And she was, what, in her 50s when she took that test. She passed that test. It was a written test. She passed it. There were young men in their 20s who didn't pass the test. So it was quite an achievement. If she had enough time and enough education, she would have been very successful.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And she would do things like sew her own dresses and everything, right?
Oh yeah, I used to tell her, I want this, this, and this, you know, with this here and this there, and then she'd make it for me.
So she was really a fast learner.
Very.
She really picked up a lot.
She was, no grass grew under her feet. She was quick, and if you weren't quick and couldn't keep up with her, it was a problem. But I didn't have that problem. I was fast too.
Yeah,
so.
you learn to be fast, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
Remember, she's like that too.
Mm-hmm. You learn to be, you know, you just do everything quickly and get it done.
I think maybe that's why sometimes Rinpoche is very frustrated with the way things work in Malaysia, because people are very slow. Or people have this attitude like, oh, it can be done tomorrow.
Mm-hmm.
And he's very, very fast. Like,
mm-hmm.
you know, if it can be done now, why don't you do it now?
That's right. Why wait till tomorrow?
Yeah.
Just get it done and out of the loop and move on to something else.
Yeah. And he's very sharp at noticing people's expressions and their reactions. And he said it was all training from Donna, actually.
Yeah, it was.
He had to be very alert.
Yeah, because you learned, and you know, that's basically, you could tell by looking at someone's face of, you know, what's going on, and you know exactly what mode to go into.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm good at it too.
No, you were saying earlier, there's a question here, that when you hear Julia saying your name in that way, it makes you kind of jump. What kind of feelings does it re-evoke?
Terror.
Terror?
Yes.
What do you mean by terror?
Because the saying of the name would usually meant that there was a beating coming.
Oh, okay. I'm just trying to get an idea of how it might have been for Rinpoche when he heard Dana's voice.
And he probably had the same feeling, terror.
Even though it's a totally different situation.
It's not even coming from her.
Yeah.
But she does it. She has her intonations down perfectly, and has her speak down perfectly. And she talks just like she can imitate my mother perfectly.
Oh.
And when she does it with saying with my name like that, it frightens me. I've gotten better at it now, but it's, you know, it was terror.
So you did live with that kind of like it's always anticipation and always that kind of fear. When's it going to happen again? But
that's why you learned to read the body language, so you knew when you were safe and when you weren't.
Yeah, that's what Rinpoche has said as well. Like the slightest look could change the whole mood of the day. So he'd be very alert as to what her moods were like, so he could toe the line or do what was needed at the time.
Well, you know, paranoid schizophrenics are like that.
So it wasn't really, I mean, as kids with parents, you couldn't joke with them too much then? Or play around?
No, you could joke and play around with them. You know, everything had its place. I mean, the three of us, when we get together, we're always laughing and joking. And my mother was quite a jokester. When as she got older and was more, you know, when she was in a good frame of mind, she was, you know, she was delightful to be with, and she always used to say, you know, funny things and make you all laugh. And you know, with Madam, when all the girls would get together and we'd all be cooking in the kitchen, and that was really a fun time. And my kids would help her, and they'd make borsuk, and you know, there'd be flour everywhere, and she wouldn't get upset. Where if I had done that, you know, I'd have to clean it up. But she's like, "It's okay. They're learning. They're, you know, they're making borsuk, you know, and the whole kitchen's covered in flour. They're covered in flour. She's covered in flour. But it was okay."
I guess by then she had She was on medication as well, right? So she was
No.
Oh, no?
No, she was a grandmother. That was the big difference.
Oh, okay.
It was grandchildren.
Did you feel, you know, I was talking to Rinpoche about what his cousins were saying, because people like Sarah and Naran, they don't have a bad word to say against Dana and Bertha.
Mm-hmm.
And they said, no, it was always fun times when we went to the Bugayev house.
Oh, it was.
And they remember that Rinpoche had a whole basement of toys.
He did.
And when I talked to Rinpoche about it, he said, yeah, that is how it was for them, but it was a very different story for me growing
Mm-hmm.
up.
See, I don't even think the rest of the family knows what I'm telling you.
Oh, okay. They don't know that all this happened.
Mm-mm. They know some of it, but no one has ever asked. And if you don't ask, I'm not going to tell you. Because there's no reason to rehash it.
So none of the relatives ever asked you what was going on, or are you okay?
Nope.
Do you have any idea why no one may have stepped in, even though they had an
Well,
idea?
you don't step into someone else's family. My grandfather could do it because he was my grandfather, but none of the siblings would do that because I think they were afraid.
Of
My mother?
of Dana?
Yes.
So she was very strong, wasn't she?
Yes. So that was something they just didn't want to deal with.
Some of the interviews that we done also said, they said also that for many of them that they didn't think that there was anything wrong, because they thought, oh, this is just the way Dana is, that sometimes she loses her temper, but actually she's a very nice lady. So
that's exactly what they saw. That's exactly what it was.
You know, when Rinpoche ran away, I don't know if you were home or
No, I was gone by then.
Okay. So would you know what it was like, you know, in between those runaway attempts, what it was like for your parents at home, what it was like for Rinpoche?
They never discussed that.
So it was always kind of swept under the rug after it
Always.
happened?
There's lots of secrets. Lots of secrets.
Okay. Do you think that was a very, like an old school way of dealing with it? Because that's a very Chinese thing too.
Yes.
Don't talk about it.
No, don't talk about it. You got to save face. You don't discuss it. You know, it's not happening. You know, why discuss it? You just don't talk about it.
But Bertra, I've heard, also was very concerned about what people thought of him. Is that true?
Extremely. He was very vain. He's the only man I know who will go out and mow the lawn in a white shirt and a tie. That was just him.
So he'd never like relax and just be casual and...
No. No, he was always dressed to the T's. Yeah, he always looked good.
And even the things that
Color coordinated too.
Oh. And I guess that spilled over to Little Bercha, right? That's why he was called Little Bercha. Do you remember him being dressed in like matching suits with Boris?
Well, he had, I don't know if they had matching suits, but you know, he always had a suit. Because you had to have a suit to get dressed up, just like I had to have a party dress to be ready. You just never know.
I remember Rinpoche saying that his cousins would all be like in jeans and just regular American clothes, and he'd have to wear like these polyester suits to functions.
Oh yeah, you have to be ready, dressed up and look good.
And do you think that's also partly why, I mean, it was for you as well, that you had to look good to reflect on him and the family, right?
Right.
Okay. So if you decided to get up and run around and mess up your dress, it would be trouble at home.
Oh yeah, I never did that.
Never got up and run around?
No.
Spill chocolate down your dress?
No. No, never.
Oh,
That's why I can sit here like this for so long.
It sure develops patience. Okay, this is a little bit sensitive, but I wondered if you knew that Rinpoche had also attempted to kill himself.
No, I didn't know that.
Suicide when he was younger.
I didn't know that, but I'm not surprised.
Did you? And this is, you don't have to answer this if you don't want to. But
I'll answer anything you ask me.
Okay. Did you ever have those feelings too as you were growing up?
Yes.
Did you ever attempt it?
No, not indirectly.
Okay.
No, not directly.
Not
just directly. Yeah, about one time. And that was it. Never did it again because it was stupid.
Well, Rinpoche had told us that he had tried a few times, and you know, the same with running away, that it wasn't because, you know, he didn't love his parents, but because he wanted to practice Dharma so much and he couldn't. And he had wanted to end his life so that he could take another life where he would be able to practice Buddhism.
Mm.
But all the attempts failed.
Well, there's a reason.
Yes, yeah. Thank goodness for us too.
You have to follow the road.
Yes. And he said, you know, with every time he tried to kill himself, he would make a prayer to the Buddha of wisdom that, you know, please may I end my life so that I can take another one and practice Dharma, because I can't practice Dharma now. But I guess the Buddhas have other plans, and he had other plans as well.
You have to follow the road. It's you have all those adversities for a reason, and they're there for a reason because it makes you stronger. And you have to be able to feel all the sadness and all the pain in order to enjoy all the happiness. I mean, it's like, you know, the yin and the yang. You got to have the balance, and you're in the middle. But how are you going to know when you're truly happy unless you've been really truly sad? I mean, that's just all part of the life, and you just have to learn to go with the flow.
Do you think, I mean, was your childhood characterized by a lot of sadness? Is that what you would have said it was?
It was half and half. I can remember being a sad child. Then I can remember times of just sheer delight and happiness. So, you know, I had both. And most of the time it was just the middle ground.
We're just kind of waiting.
Yeah, you're just, you know, you're in limbo. So there's a reason for everything.
But do you think it's also, I mean, Rinpoche had also said when he finally made it to LA, his teacher said, call up Donna and apologize to her for the harm that you caused her. And Rinpoche at that time said, oh, it was so difficult because he had received all this pain. And his teacher just said, well, you either believe in karma or you don't. And you either believe that you could have chosen anyone as parents. Why did you choose them as parents? So it's very much chosen in a way. And it's something that when Rinpoche now talks to his students, he says, you know, don't think that I was brought up on brocade and silks in a monastery. I really went through the hard way as well.
And that was he needed to experience all that to get him to his point. We all have a road that we follow, and my road is, you know, learning to deal with my parents and all of that aggravation and all of that stress. It made me a better mother. And it helped my children because my son was attention deficit, my daughter was attention deficit hyperactive, and you just learn coping skills and how to make things a little bit better so that they're happy and they're successful. And I'm not too worried about my son, but you know, there's still worries there, but that's not my concern anymore. He's on his own road, and I still got one more to go, and it's been rocky with her, but you know, it's getting better. She's growing up.
Or you kind of learn to let go a little easier?
That was never a problem. Letting go was never a problem. They have to do what they have to do because they all learn the hard way. They can never learn the easy way of, you know, you instructing them and then telling them and actually showing them. They actually have to live it. So they have to learn it the hard way. And that's just, and the only thing you can do is just sit back and watch.
And that's the best
and
experience.
Pick up the pieces.
When Rinpoche was growing up, he had a goal that he was working towards. Like he wanted to do Dharma, and that was something that he was looking forward to all the time. Did you have something like that as well that you were looking forward to? Or something that, you know, a goal that you had as you were growing up?
No, I didn't.
Was that difficult then, that you were...
No, I was just happy to survive the day. I still am. And I don't have anything bothering me except for children. But no, I really didn't have a goal. And then when I met Mark, you know, I knew that this was the person, and that was my goal. That was, you know, we're soulmates. We've been through a lot together, and we're always still there to support each other, which is amazing because it's been 40 years.
Wow.
So it's kind
That
of...
is wonderful.
Yeah, I met him when I was 19.
Wow.
Now I'm 59. And it's, you know, it's just meant to be.
Did Donna love him? I guess she came around and then
Yeah.
she did love him too.
Yeah. I don't know if she ever loved him, but she tolerated him very well.
Okay.
And he was good to her. He was always good to them.
Was it difficult that you were not marrying a Kalmyk?
For me or them?
For them?
Yes. Very difficult, but they got used to it. It took them 8 years. They decided they wanted to have grandchildren.
Oh, okay.
It was like, well, when are you going to get married and have children? Like, oh, it's now time to get married.
Yeah.
So we have to wait out both sets of parents, because his parents didn't want him to marry me either.
Oh, okay. That must have been difficult.
Yeah, we waited out both sets of parents.
Gosh. Guess, you know, when we hear how much people went through then, it's like so much easier now for so many of us.
Well, I think it's too easy. That's why there's so much divorce.
Yeah.
Just way too easy.
Or people get themselves into a lot more trouble and are a lot less strong these days because we are kind of coddled as we are brought up, I think. A lot of us.
Coddling.
Yeah.
Too much on the technology. You rely on technology instead of actually getting to know people and speak to people, you know, face to face, and look into somebody's eyes and actually talk to them. I mean, that's missing. We're losing some of our humanity.
Yeah, I think so.
And we need to keep that in order to be strong. And if you don't have that, then you don't have any strength to draw from.
I think, you know, one of the nice things about going to Howell was seeing the streets where Rinpoche would play with his cousins. And that was nice to know that, you know, things were difficult at home, but he could go out and meet his friends, and they could play on the streets and ride their bikes around and play. And yeah, that was something nice to know that there was a lot of interaction. And I guess the Kalmyk families are very supportive, so there was a lot of interaction. I guess in today's age, kids would just, they would, if it was a similar situation, you would find refuge in a computer game or something, which is probably not as healthy.
It's not, but you know, they can come back from it.
Yeah.
It's just, you know, it's also, it's a teenage thing. They go through the things when they're teenagers, especially when they're trying to separate from you. Because my son used to be on the computer constantly. But, you know, they were never allowed TVs or computers in their rooms. Computer was an access of where other people could be around so that you were around other people to use it. So it depends on how you handle it. And he went through a stage, and, you know, all the kids come over here, and they have LAN parties and all hook their computers all up together and play computers all night long. But, you know, at least they were sort of
social,
interfacing with each other, and because they were physically there. And I mean, we had boys over all the time with Max growing up, and one of them was his friend Hung. He's Vietnamese, and he'd bring me a box of you know, a cake box and say, "Can you make me a cake?" He'd be embarrassed because he didn't want to ask me. So Max said, "Hung wants you to make him a cake." I'm like, "Okay, I'll make you a cake." And, you know, just always feeding them and stuff, and they would always love to come over here to eat.
It's like Donna.
Yeah, and one of them became a chef.
Oh, how
so
nice.
I was really excited about that. He'd show me his little books on the spices and what he was learning in culinary school and everything like that. So I saw a lot of them grow up, and can't tell you how many girls have lived here. Oh, we've had boys live with us too, just like Aunt Matza, and they needed refuge, and they were all troubled, and they always come to my house.
I guess that's how your own experience is now helping people as well.
I don't know, they're just drawn here. It's just what happens. I mean, you can see, I mean, even Julia's friends now, it's kind of like they'll call me up and talk to me and say, you know, this, and then, you know, Mom was mad and did this, and Dad did this, and I said, well, what are you going to do now? I said, you have to just start stop feeling sorry for yourself. Well, what are you going to do tomorrow? What are you plans? I said, you have to sit and really work on this. This was just the other day. And, I mean, I was the one that came and said, oh, can your mom go buy me a pregnancy test? It's like, oh, okay. So, you know, that's just, empathy is so important.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of the teenagers nowadays need that. They don't have it. Our world is going by so fast that a lot of family values are going by the roadside. People just don't sit down and have dinner together anymore. We still do that. Mark and I just together will sit down and have a meal together and talk about what we did that day. And that's what's lacking, and the kids need it. They don't get that attention. And I've been very lucky and blessed because my husband made enough money for us to be comfortable that I had the luxury of staying home and raising my children. And they needed it.
And that's I guess, you know, after all is said and done, that was, the family unit was very strong as you were growing up. So I guess you would always have dinner together with your parents. And
Mark grew up the same way.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, he's Jewish.
Oh, I see.
So he has a Jewish mom.
Yeah.
She makes you eat too. So we both had that, and that's both kind of what, you know, we've always done. And when the kids are home, you know, we always have dinner together. We always eat, whether
That's
it's
nice.
here or somewhere else.
What was it like growing up as a part Asian girl or as a Kalmyk kid in Howell, which I guess was a very white suburb at the time?
Well, it was diversified because it was of all the displaced people. So you had people from Russia, you had people from the different, you know, not Asian countries, but European countries that settled there after the war. So there was a whole blending of different cultures. And it wasn't really American. It was more of a group of people who had come from Europe and Russia. And so you just had these different people, and you didn't really have much dealings with Americans because the community grew up when it was free wood acres because, you know, there's woods and they were free. So they were, you know, really happy about that. So they just basically developed their own little community, and it just kept growing.
But for yourself personally, was it a challenge being part Asian and part white?
Oh yes, always. You don't fit in anywhere. You can't totally be Asian because you're not, you know, accepted because you're not fully full-blooded Kalmyk. And then when you're in American society, you know, you have the little slanty eye, so they call you chinky and all this other stuff. So you don't have a place to go in there. But with most of the people that I grew up with were you know, Russians and you know, from Yugoslavia and places like that. So that really helped a lot. So I had a lot of, you know, friends outside of the home that it didn't bother them.
But within the Kalmyk community, did you really feel it if you were different?
Yes, always.
How would they make you feel differently? I thought they were a very close community.
They are a very close community, but you have to remember that if you're different, back then, I was like one of the first ones that was, you know, half Kalmyk, and there weren't that many of us at that time, and it wasn't accepted. So you know, I was kind of like a prototype, so to speak. And then there was my cousin Susanna, who's also half Kalmyk, and you know, there was just the two of us, and so we always had each other. And they're just, it was just different. When there was, they'd have like the Kalmyk Youth Organization, when they would have, you know, dances and stuff for, you know, showing how to do the Kalmyk dances. And I'm an excellent dancer. I used to do a lot of, you know, dancing, modern and just everything like that. But, you know, I wasn't invited to be one of the participants because I wasn't full-blooded Kalmyk, and they would, you know, they didn't want someone who didn't look completely Kalmyk to be as one of the participants. And now it's like not a problem.
Yeah.
So I was like one of the first guinea pigs.
Was it difficult for Donna as well that one of her children was only half Kalmyk? Did they make trouble for her?
No, basically everybody knew, but nobody would ever say anything. The whole community knew, so they were pretty respectful of that. And my mother's close friends, it was never a problem. Just some of the older Kalmyks that are set in their ways. It was kind of, you didn't get the opportunities to do things like the full-blooded Kalmyk would get. And that sometimes disturbed her.
But Rinpoche also was not fully Mongolian. Do you know if he ever had problems as a kid? No?
He shouldn't know. He was male.
Okay, so it was to a certain extent easier for
and
males.
he looked Kalmyk.
I guess most of the society would have known that he was adopted.
Yes.
Yeah. Do you know what the reaction was of people or what they thought?
Well, they were quite pleased because they had a big party for him when invited all the elders and everybody, and introduced him, and everybody was all excited. Having a new addition.
But he never knew he was adopted until much later.
That's correct.
Did he ever speak to you about that?
No.
No. Was it ever an issue at home that he was adopted?
No, he was the prince.
Oh,
he
yeah,
was the male. Yeah, the male heir. No, that's never been a problem.
Do you remember how respectful people were of the Mongolian royalty?
Extremely.
Okay. So they still held them in very high regard even though they were out of their home country?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah,
okay.
This culture doesn't just die away. It's just they're really close-knit, and they just really respected it. It was a big deal when Deva first came to the country.